I'd like to thank several people for making this possible tonight. In addition to all the sponsors and all of you who are attending, I certainly want to thank Sharon Rockefeller. Sharon is a great educator as well as a great broadcaster. Some of you may not know, she's been the head of the public broadcasting station in Washington for roughly 30 years, I think it is. 30, how many? 36. Okay. 36 years, as I said. During that time, she came up with some programs that no doubt many of you have seen. One of them is a set of series by Ken Burns. If you like Ken Burns, you owe it to Sharon Rockefeller, because she put him on TV before anybody ever heard of Ken Burns. And all these years, all the Ken Burns shows really come through because of WETA and Sharon Rockefeller's support of him. So she's not only a great broadcaster, but a great educator and a great American. And someday, whoever the selection committee is here for this medal should certainly give one to Sharon Rockefeller. So thank you very much, Sharon. Jeff Rosen, I remember when Jeff was selected for this position, people said, he's a law professor. How can a law professor really run a museum or something like the Constitution Center? And everybody who said that was, of course, wrong. Jeff has shown the incredible intellect that he brings to any matter in running this incredible center, but also he's become an inspiring educator for so many people. And his enthusiasm for the Constitution and the Declaration has no peer. And if he had been at the Constitutional Convention, I think it would have been even better than it is today. So, Jeff, thank you for making it possible. Three brief points, and then we can all adjourn for dinner. First point is, it wasn't very far from here that Benjamin Franklin had his experiments with electricity, and people laughed at him because people thought he was a little crazy and didn't know what he was doing. And he turned out that he more or less discovered electricity and discovered certain principles about it, and became the most famous American in the country and the most famous American in the world. Not until George Washington came along much later did anybody in the world know any prominent American other than Benjamin Franklin. And he was engaged in another experiment and participated in the experiment of the Constitution. And that was even a crazier experiment than some of his electricity experiments. The idea was you're going to get 50-some white men coming together in Philadelphia during the summertime, no air conditioning, windows are closed so nobody can hear anything and no leaks occur. And these 50-some people came together and developed a document that has stood the test of time. When you think about it, more than 200 years later, we're still operating largely under the principles of that document. And it is incredible that it has survived this long and with so few amendments, relatively speaking. And it's incredible that we didn't have a Constitution Center until this one was open to educate people about it more and to celebrate it. Now, we're celebrating the 250th anniversary soon of the country, but when you think about what we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. It's a great document, more or less a propaganda document. It had no legal effect. It was to say, here's why we're breaking away from the British, and it's wonderfully written by Thomas Jefferson and so forth. And it was edited heavily, and he didn't like the edits, and he refused to admit he was the author for many years because he thought it was too heavily edited. But we should be celebrating, and we will in time, but the thing we should really celebrate is the 250th anniversary of the Constitution, because the Constitution is what governs us, not the Declaration of Independence. So happy to celebrate the 250th of the Declaration, but I really look forward to the 250th of the Constitution if I'm around to celebrate it. And I do think that's a much more significant document. And I think this center does a wonderful job of educating people about the Constitution, because we need to have people know more about it. Now, in my own case, I have tried in a modest way to educate people about it. And the way I decided to do it is trying to preserve documents and buildings. And why is that? Why do we need to preserve the Declaration of Independence? Why do we need to preserve the Constitution? We know what's in those documents. You can put it on a computer slide. Why do we need to have all these documents preserved so people can see what they looked like 200 years ago? What's the point of it? We know what's in the words are, so why just throw away the old documents? In many cases, we throw away our old clothes, we throw away our own cars, we throw away a lot of old stuff. Why don't we just throw away these old documents? Well, the reason is when you see a historic document and you know you're going to see it, you're going to likely get more educated. Let me explain what I mean. The human brain is an incredible device, unbelievable. When we came out of caves as Homo sapiens 400,000 years ago, it probably wasn't apparent to the other animals in Africa that we were going to dominate the world. And because we weren't as fast as the other animals, we weren't as strong, we weren't as big, but we had a brain. And the brain evolved in incredible ways. It created enormous cultures and wonderful things that all of us have benefited from. But fortunately, the brain has not yet evolved to the point where you see something on a computer slide, it's exactly the same as seeing it in person. So when you see the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution or a replica of it in person or a historic copy, you're more likely, before you go see it, to be educated and read about it. You're more likely when you go there to have a curator tell you about it, and you're more likely when you leave to read about it. And therefore, you're more likely to get educated about it. The same thing is with historic buildings. Why preserve the Washington Monument and Monticello, Montpelier? We know what they look like, and let them fall apart when they're done and build new buildings. Why do you preserve the old buildings? For the same reason. Because when you go see something like that, you're going to prepare for it, you're going to be educated about it. When you get there, a curator will tell you about it, and then when you leave, you're more likely to read about it. And that is more likely to make people better educated about our country and our history in a way that I think is necessary. And I think it's very important that we do that. And the final point I wanted to make is this. I accepted this award because I'm honored to get it, and I'm happy to be given it, but the truth is I'm only accepting it on behalf of other people who are doing the educating much more than I am. And I accept the award on behalf of high school teachers and civics teachers and people who are preserving documents and preserving buildings, working at the Park Service, doing other things to make sure that Americans know as much about our history as possible. So I'm really their representative tonight. And so I think while I'm honored to get the award, I really think I'm accepting it for other people who are engaged in educating Americans about our history, so hopefully we can have a more informed citizenry. And all of you, by the virtue of the fact that you're here tonight, are, I think, showing your own interest in preserving history and making sure Americans know more about our Constitution. And I urge all of you, when you go home tonight, to think about what more you can do to educate Americans, educate your children, your grandchildren, and to educate your neighbors and other people about American history and what you can do in a way that helps people learn more about our country's history. We can only do this if people like you go back, think about what you can do to make this country a better place. And one of the ways I hope you can think about doing so is educating people, making certain they know more about the Constitution, more about the Declaration of Independence, more about how our government works. And so I ask all of you to think about this tonight when you go home, what more you might be able to do in your own ways and try to do things differently than anything I've done. But I'll come up with a different way to do it, perhaps better than anything I've done. But just think about it tonight, because I know that if all of you participate, other audiences around the country are doing the same kind of thing, we'll have a much better country and a much better democracy. Thank you very much.